For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Search and rescue efforts continue for a third day in Turkey and Syria as the death toll has surpassed 11,000 from a 7.8 earthquake and many aftershocks that has reduced regions to rubble. It's the deadliest quake worldwide in more than a decade. In Syria, rebel or opposition-held areas say aid is being blocked. That's where the quake has hit hardest in the north. The White Helmets have called on the United Nations to do more to provide aid. Spirits were lifted in the region after 2 children were rescued separately after some 40 hours under the rubble. Syria's representative to the United Nations, Saban Bassal, is among several to accuse Western sanctions against President Assad of preventing aid from reaching the country.
Lots of the cargo airplane, refused to land on Syrian airports because of the American and European sanctions.
In Turkey, hope for finding survivors is fading, with fears overnight lows will be too cold for many trapped to survive. Amid calls for the Turkish government to send more help to the disaster zone, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan toured a tent city.
On the first day, we experienced some issues, but then on the second day and today, the situation is under control. We will never allow our citizens to be left on the streets. I am asking our people not to give the provocateurs an opportunity and only pay attention to the statements coming from the Disaster Management Authority. Today is a time of unity and solidarity.
Search teams from more than 24 countries have joined tens of thousands of local emergency personnel, and aid pledges have poured in from around the world. One of 2 U.S. expert urban search and rescue teams are in Turkey from the Los Angeles Fire Department. More than 80 people with 6 K-9 teams to help in search and rescue efforts, along with engineers. But the scale of destruction is so immense, many are still waiting for help. In the U.S., President Joe Biden struck a bipartisan tone in his State of the Union address. He teased House Speaker Kevin McCarthy he doesn't want to spoil his reputation, but looks forward to working with him, and called on Republican lawmakers to work with him to finish the job of rebuilding the economy and uniting the nation. He also introduced California resident Brandon Say as his guest for the State of the Union, where he pressed for a ban on semi-automatic weapons. Say wrestled a semi-automatic gun from a suspect in a mass shooting just minutes after the Monterey Park massacre in California last month, preventing a second tragedy that night in the nearby town of Alhambra.
In that instant, he found the courage to act and wrestled a semi-automatic pistol away from the gunman who had already killed 11 people in another dance studio. 11. He saved lives. It's time we do the same. Ban assault weapons now. Ban them now. Once and for all. In 10 years, that ban was law and mass shootings went down. After we let it expire in the Republican administration, mass shootings tripled. Let's finish the job and ban these assault weapons.
He also called for extending a new $35 per month price cap on insulin for people on Medicare to everyone in the country, and he pushed Congress to quadruple the 1% tax on corporate share buybacks that was enacted in the Democrats' climate and health care bill passed last year, known as the Inflation Reduction Act. He vowed to veto any abortion ban that reaches his desk and pledged no cuts to Social Security nor Medicare. And then he called for police reforms, as Tyree Nichols' family were in attendance. He's the man killed in Memphis, Tennessee, by 5 police officers who have since been charged with second-degree murder.
We also need more first responders and professionals to address the growing mental health, substance abuse challenges. More resources to reduce violent crime and gun crime. When police officers or police departments violate the public trust, they must be held accountable. I signed an executive order for all federal officers, banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, and other key elements of the George Floyd Act. Let's commit ourselves to make the words of Tyler's mom true. Something good must come from this. Something good.
Members of the Black Caucus wore pins with the date 1870 on them as a sign of their demand for police reform. It marks the first known police killing of a free black man. Immigration was the topic of a House hearing yesterday where Democrats and Republicans clashed on the issue. Edwin J. Vieira reports.
U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents testified before the House Oversight and Accountability Committee about the border crisis. Democrats spoke about how more fentanyl is getting stopped at the border, but Republicans noted the number of people carrying drugs into the country is unclear. Florida Democrat Jared Moskowitz lamented the disconnect between the parties.
All we're doing in this hearing is politicizing another issue in this country that doesn't need to be politicized. We all agree that fentanyl is a problem.
I'm Edwin J. Vieira for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is in the United Kingdom, where he will address legislators and the king. It comes as the UK is stepping up military aid to the country, and as Zelensky warns, Russia's preparing a major offensive to mark its one-year anniversary on the country later this month. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.